Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll pick up with chapter 48, verse 10. Chapter 48, verse 10. We were discussing this pasuk yesterday. The pasuk describes that Yaakov didn't see well, and he brought Menashe and Ephraim, his grandsons, the sons of Yosef, near him, and he kissed them and hugged them. We saw the Sforno yesterday who explains that before a bracha is going to be given, there has to be a strong connection with the recipient, between the giver and the recipient of the bracha. And normally that connection is achieved through looking at one, but that really wasn't going to work for Yaakov. So that's why he brought them close. The Orach Chaim, it's still not so clear from the Orach Chaim why this is important, but he has a very interesting shot in the pasuk. If you look at the Orach Chaim on pasuk Yud, Be'ena Yisrael, Tzarich Ladas, Lama Kosav Hodazu B'makom Zeh. Why does the Torah need to tell us here, right now? You should just know that Yaakov didn't see well. What, if anything, is the connection between the fact that Yaakov doesn't see well and the fact that he hugs and kisses them? This is a really interesting observation. Again, if you're not so familiar with the biblical Hebrew, it might be a little bit more difficult to understand. It could have said, the normal way to say to kiss someone would be Vayishak Osam. And he says, instead it says in the pasuk Vayishak Lahem, which literally means he kissed to them. It's a little bit of a strange language, kissing to them. If you would have said Vayishak Osam, it means he kissed them. He says maybe the two questions answer each other. Really interesting. So, you ever been with someone who's trying to hug and they're not like putting their arms in the right place exactly, or who's trying to kiss but they don't see clearly where on the face they're supposed to be kissing? So he says that's the pshat in the pasuk. Vaishak lohem means he kissed to them, meaning he kissed towards them. He hugged towards them, meaning it wasn't exactly how one would normally hug and kiss, but that was the best he could do because he couldn't see them very well. There's a very interesting shot in the pasuk. I'll just say, presumably, the significance for the moment is this very famous thing, which we'll soon see. I don't know if we'll get to it today or tomorrow, God willing, that he puts his right hand on the second son, and Yosef tries to switch his hands. And in this context, it's so starkly obvious that he's not seeing very well because he can't even hug and kiss them quite normally. So then, of course, Yosef assumes he's confused as to which son is which. That's why Yosef intervenes. That presumably is the pshat. It's a very interesting pshat. Just sort of fills in the picture, maybe in a different way. I don't know about any of you that I never envisioned that picture quite that way. Okay. He then gives Yosef a bracha in verse 15, and he says, "Vayivarech es Yosef vayomar." Yaakov blessed Yosef, and he said, "Well, Elokim, asher yisalchu avosai lefanav Avraham Yitzchak, the God that my fathers Avraham and Yitzchak walked before him, Hu Elokim haro eosi, the God who shepherds me, me'odi ad hayom hazeh, from this time, from whenever I've been around until this very day." Verse 16, Hamalach hagoel osi mikora. This is such a beautiful pasuk that we say in so many contexts. The angel that protects me from all ill, Yivareches Hana'arim, should bless the children, presumably Menashe and Ephraim, V'karevem Shmi v'Shem Avosai Avram Yitzchak, and my name should be associated with them, and the names of my father and grandfather, Avram and Yitzchak, should be associated with them. V'yitgu larov b'kerev haaretz, and they should flourish to great abundance within the land. The yidgu is understood as a connection to the word dug. Dug is fish, and fish are supposed to be the creatures that can multiply very easily, and so they should flourish in number within the land. Okay, there's a really interesting kliyakar on this pasuk. If you look at, it's the second kliyakar on pasuk Tes Zayin, v'yidgu larov b'kerev haaretz. In my layout, it's a new paragraph. V'nasan birkas haribui is a new paragraph. But either way, it's probably about 10 lines into the second Kli Yakar. He touches on an interesting question. You know, you say that the angels should protect the children from all ills. That's pretty good. You say that the children should be associated with me and my father, my grandfather. That's pretty good. They should become great in number. It's a nice bracha. It's a nice bracha. Is there any significance between this bracha and Yosef's children particularly? Could you have said that? I mean, he could have said all of this for the whole family. He's clearly giving Yosef's family special bracha. But is there any special significance to a bracha of abundance in number being specifically given to Yosef's branch of the family? So Kli Yakar, he says, "V'nasan birkas haribui dafka Yosef." The bracha of abundance in number was specifically imparted to Yosef. Kishmo more al hatosefes v'haribui. The very name Yosef connotes addition. Kamoshenemar Yosef Hashem li bein acher. When he's named, what's said? Thanks, Mom. I know what's going on. When he says Yosef Hashem li, when he's named, it's with the hope that God will add for me another child. So this was the only child Rachel had at this point. That she davens that she should be zocha, she should marry to have another child. So his very essence of his name speaks to increase. So what better branch of the family to give this bracha to than Yosef? Yosef alechem kachem elef pamim. It's a bracha later on in the Torah. It's not a Yosef bracha, but the word is that God should make you a greater number by 1,000 times. V'ha'isa bracha zu ruya b'yoser el Ephraim. Al Shem Kifrani Elokim. Really, really interesting. Ephraim. Why is he called Ephraim? Because Yosef says, because God has made me flourish like a fruit. Ifrani. God has made me flourish in this strange land. So Yosef's name is about addition, and his son Ephraim, who's one of the children being blessed here, is connoting addition. Cain. Nasan Yamino al Rosh Ephraim, says the Kli Yakar. That's why Yaakov puts his right hand on Ephraim, even though Ephraim is the second child. The normal way we understand the pshat, again, that's why Yaakov puts his right hand on Ephraim. The normal way we understand the pshat is either way, it's clear in the pasuk. Yosef thinks Yaakov's all confused, and Yaakov says, "I know what I'm doing." The normal way we understand the pshat is because Ephraim is going to be a tribe of greater distinction than Menashe, so he puts his right hand on Ephraim. The Kli Yakar says the nature of the bracha that he's giving has to do with abundance, and it has more to do with Ephraim because it fits into his name. So he puts his right hand on Ephraim's head. Ki chashav Yaakov sheshmo misayel or l'kabbalas bracha zu. Because Yaakov felt the fact that he was given this name will make him a more likely receptacle, a more powerful receptacle, whatever it is, for this blessing. Yosef thought, on the other hand, Yosef says, whoa, wait a second, whoa. Menashe is my older child. And what's the practical difference between being the older child and the younger child? The oldest child gets double portion. So he says, if you're giving a bracha that has to do with abundance, of course it should go to the older child. Cain, Birkas Haribu lo yasa b'yoser. V'heshiv Yaakov, yodati v'ni yodati. This is really a whole different way of looking at these psukim. Yaakov says back, I know my son, I know. Right? I know what I'm doing. Whenever, we talk so much about every letter in the Torah, you ever wonder why does it say yodati twice? She just said, so the normal way we understand this, yodati v'niva yodati, it's an emphasis, I know exactly what I'm doing. Says the Kli Yakar, hizkir shnei pamim yodati, k'neged birkas pishnayim shel habachor. So he says, I know twice to parallel the double blessing of the firstborn, because that's what Yosef's arguing. V'yomer gam hu yiyeh la'am, v'gam hu yigdal. He also will be great, he also will be a nation. Hizkir shnei gam, lir mozal hakevo. By the way, he says gam, also twice. So that's a language of double. Okay. Skipping a couple lines of a mikom makom. But nevertheless, the younger brother Ephraim will be greater than him. God chooses more the younger ones or the smaller ones. That's how it is. Adam sheyesh bo tzad katnus as biyoser kadosh baruch hu magbio l'shiso la'alfei revava. Every person that has an aspect of being small, obviously we don't mean petty, we mean of an aspect of humility, God elevates that person. It's a very interesting thing to think about. Says the Kli Yakar, the beautiful pasuk in Sefer Dvarim, Lo me'rubchem mikol ha'amim chashak Hashem bachem. It's not because you're larger than other nations that God desired you. Ki atem hama'at mikol ha'amim. Because you are the smallest of nations, which we can understand in certain ways. We can understand that you're a pretty small nation compared to other nations, which we are. Or we can understand it that you act small sometimes, again, in a positive sense. And that's why we have Hashem's brachos, the humility within Klal Yisrael. That's why we have Hashem's brachos. So it's just a very, very interesting Kli Yakar on a number of aspects. Okay, let's now go to verse 17. So, Yaakov has placed his right hand, as we've been discussing. Yaakov has placed his right hand on the younger son, left hand on the older son. He says this bracha, Vayar Yosef ki Yashiz aviv yad yamino al rosh Ephraim, vayira beinav. Yosef sees that Yaakov put his right hand on Ephraim's head, and that was bad in his eyes. Vayismoch yad aviv, and he sort of supported his father's hand, la sirosa me'al rosh Ephraim al rosh Menashe, to remove it from Ephraim's head to Menashe's head. We know the story, we've referenced it a few times already today. There's a phrase here that's interesting to think about. Vayera be'enav is pretty strong. Vayera be'enav is literally, that was bad in his eyes. Or if we're going to get like really literal, that was like evil in his eyes. I mean, maybe that's a little too strong, but that's like the literal meaning. If he thinks his father's making a mistake, okay, you correct, you correct your father, whatever it is, but it's like, this was disturbing to him. Why is it so disturbing? So very quickly, Ramban on Pasuk Yud Zayin, Vayera be'enav, Ula Yosef haya oivas Menashe Yoser, va'avur hayoso b'chor. Maybe Yosef had a greater affection for Menashe because Menashe was the first. Lochein charlo. Maybe says the Ramban, he was annoyed. He was, he had a special attachment to Menashe, and he was looking out for Menashe's covet. So he got angry. This is not good. Maybe, says the Ramban, maybe that's the pshat. V'anachon be'inai. But what I think the pshat is ki choshav sheta aviv b'hem. He was very concerned that his father was confused as to who was who. V'im hoisa birchaso b'hem b'vli das, lo savo birchaso aleim. And if his blessing would be without knowledge, the blessing wouldn't be impactful. Ki einena beruach hakodesh karoi, because it wouldn't be with the appropriate spirit. Kasher amar lo yodati b'ni yodati nisbayis. Says the Ramban, what I really think the pshat is that he needs to be focused and understanding the bracha when he's giving it. And if he thinks that this is Menashe he's giving the bracha to when it's really Ephraim, maybe the bracha won't even take full effect. So that disturbs Yosef greatly. And then it's very interesting. Once his father says, I know what I'm doing, then Yosef is quiet. He's fine. Why is he quiet? So the way we normally understand it is he backs off, right? We all have family stories like that we think someone's making a mistake, and we, especially if it's an older generation, and we tell them, da-da-da, and they say, I know what I'm doing. And then we promptly keep quiet, and that's that. But says the Kli Yakar, it's more than that. He had a concern that his father was confused, and then the bracha wouldn't take effect. The moment he understands his father isn't confused, he's done. He's fine. He's not going to tell his father what to do. So we discussed the Orach Chaim regarding the blindness of Yaakov. We discussed the Kli Yakar regarding the abundance of bracha. And we discussed the Ramban regarding why Yosef wants to move his hands. I must leave because I think I'm parked where I'm not supposed to be. I hear a honking horn, and I think it's for me. Wishing you all a good day. I apologize.